When you're standing in the aisle looking at a massive 55-inch OLED TV paired with a separate 8-speaker soundbar, the first thought is usually, do I really need all that? That hesitation is real. You've probably wondered whether the extra speakers will actually change the way movies sound in your living room, or if you'll just end up with a pricey piece of decor that never gets used. The answer isn't simple, but I've spent the past few weeks setting up the Sony BRAVIA 8 II with the HTA9M2 home theater system, and I want to walk you through what that looks like day to day. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest draw of this package is the promise of cinema-style sound without having to run a wall of traditional speakers. Sony's approach is to use 4 upward-firing speakers that bounce sound off the ceiling, plus 4 side-firing drivers that aim at the listening position. In a typical suburban home where you might have a 12-foot ceiling and a modestly sized living room, the effect is surprisingly immersive. I tested it with a mix of Netflix dramas, a few action-packed video games, and a Saturday night of classic jazz albums. The upward speakers gave a subtle sense of height in explosions or a soaring orchestra, while the side drivers delivered clear dialogue that stayed anchored to the screen. In practical terms, you get a fuller soundstage without needing to mount floor-standing towers or worry about speaker placement. That said, the system isn't a magic bullet for every space. The acoustic design assumes a reflective ceiling. If you have a heavily carpeted room with acoustic tiles or a low, vaulted ceiling, the reflected sound can be muted or feel a bit off-axis. I tried it in a bedroom with a low, sloped ceiling, and the height effects were noticeably weaker. The side speakers still performed well, but the overall immersion dropped. So if your room is more than 12 feet tall, you might not get the full benefit, and you could consider a traditional surround setup instead. One of the strengths that shows up in real use is the flexibility of the setup. The speakers are wireless, and each unit plugs into a small power brick that can be hidden behind furniture. The whole thing can be placed on a TV stand, on shelves, or even mounted on the wall with the optional brackets Sony provides. I appreciated that the system synced automatically with the TV through the BRAVIA's built-in acoustic surface processing. When you turn the TV on, the speakers power up and the audio calibrates in under a minute. No need to run a separate receiver or fiddle with speaker wires. That simplicity is a big win for anyone who isn't comfortable hunting for the perfect speaker angles. The TV itself brings the usual Sony OLED strengths, deep blacks, bright highlights, and a color volume that feels natural rather than oversaturated. In a darkened room, the pure black and our highest OLED brightness claim holds up. The contrast ratio lets you see detail in shadows that most LED panels simply crush. When you watch HDR content on a bright afternoon, the peak brightness is enough to keep the image punchy without washing out the colors. The AI-driven processing does a decent job of upscaling lower-resolution streams, so you won't feel punished for watching older shows. The picture quality, paired with the 8-speaker sound, gives a genuine mini-theater feel that many bundled soundbars can't match. There are practical trade-offs, though. The first one is price. This isn't a budget TV plus soundbar combo. You're paying a premium for both a high-end OLED panel and a full-featured speaker system. If you already own a decent sound system or are comfortable with a more modest soundbar, the incremental benefit may not justify the cost. Another point is the remote control ecosystem. The TV uses Sony's standard remote, while the speaker system is controlled through the BRAVIA's on-screen menu or a separate Sony Music Center app. Switching between TV volume and speaker volume can be a little confusing at first, especially if you're used to a single knob on a traditional AVR. I found that setting the TV's volume to a fixed level and letting the speaker system handle the actual output gave the smoothest experience, but it takes a small adjustment period. Now, who should actually consider this package? If you're a movie enthusiast who values a clean, minimalist setup and wants the sense of height and surround without the clutter of separate floor speakers, this is a strong candidate. It works especially well for families that watch a lot of streaming content together. The automatic calibration and wireless design keep the living room tidy. Gamers will also appreciate the low latency of the audio path. There's no noticeable lag between the on-screen action and the sound, which can be a problem with some Bluetooth-based soundbars. On the flip side, if you're an audiophile who demands precise speaker placement, high-end separate amplifiers, or you have an unconventional room geometry, you may find the upward-firing approach limiting. Likewise, renters who can't commit to a permanent installation, or anyone on a tight budget, should probably look at